The problems facing New Zealand's primary sector have been mounting at a rapid pace. So I think it's time for open hearts and open minds. Kia ora and welcome to Sarah's Country as we're on that countdown to the end of a year, like no other in history really, 2020. It's kind of like a good marriage, for sickness and health, for better or for worse. Hasn't it been like a good marriage though? It's ups and it's downs, but a deeper reason why we are here and a part of something great when we stick together. Being passionate and in love with a sector, such as one that feeds and clothes people, is much the same, really. It's trials and tribulations. And we discuss them on Sarah's Country. And we do love being a part of it. It does keep us coming back to this mutual love that we have for this sector. This is farming and growing food and fibre. There's this quote that I fell on, and it is a little bit true in this sort of theme. A successful marriage requires falling in love many times, always with the same person. How many times have you fallen in and out of love with what you've chosen to dedicate your life to? If you knew it's right and where you belong, you do always come back, don't you, to fall in love with it again. I hear it so many times of people I know coming in and out of farming. They've tried different things. They've left to be a builder or an accountant, a teacher or a nurse or the likes. But the pull of the country, the wide open spaces, the still mornings, the long yarns over the fence and the chaos of a to-do list, keep pulling you back to your one true love, a love for the country. I'm your host, Sarah Perium, and as your host of this show, wherever you choose to tune in, whether it's live on social media or on demand on podcasts, or of course on farmersweekly.co.nz, we do this because we all care and love the same thing. How to live and work in the coolest industry. We are so grateful that what we do every day is we feed and clothe people. I know sometimes at this time of year, lots of different times of the year, it gets to that point you go, why am I doing this? But that is what you're doing. We're feeding and clothing people. And you know what? There's a hell of a great lifestyle around it too. And good bastards, I've got to say. Another gushy love quote I just wanted to put out there is true love stands by each other's side on good days and stands closer on bad days. And I think it's true. And that's what I want to do here on Sarah's Country. We started in COVID lockdown, and we did this because we wanted to walk alongside the primary sector in a time of uncertainty. We will be here through good times and bad. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I think as we're drawing to the close of a year like no other, why not put it out there and remind ourselves why we do what we do. But it's funny, that quote actually, through good times and bad, we stand each other, beside each other. Because sometimes it's 2:00 in the morning and you're lying next to a snorer. I don't really know what that's like, because apparently I'm that person. And Joel, I'm throwing you under the bus. Are you there, Joel? He's like, no, I'm not coming through to admit to this. Joel, what's it like in your household? Do you know that you're snoring, or are you just told about it the next day?
I get told about it plenty. Yeah.
It's like, thanks, Sarah, very much. But I've got to admit, I'm exactly the same, Joel. And we're very lucky that, we're not in that situation. But Joel, the thing is, let's talk about, you've been here nearly coming up a year with me, and you're still standing by my side. Oh God, I'm sounding so gushy, aren't I? But
we're getting very
close.
We
are. But Joel, would you please come through on camera? What have you learnt to love about what we talk about here on the show? Because you've learnt so much stuff, but you actually are super passionate about New Zealand food and fibre and what we do in farming and growing. It's a pretty cool industry to be in, yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Throwing me under the bus. Cool. What have I learned? far too much about soil pH. All the things, and generally the importance of soil, actually, that's been a pretty big one, and water. Yeah, and just like how it can affect what you're doing on farm.
That is a very good way to start, because that is where all life is born in terms of what we do. And I'm so stoked. Joel gets to not only do and produce the show, but he also is such a fantastic videographer and also looks after a lot of our client work. And myself and Joel, I need to tell you, will be going out on the road for the next couple of days. And so therefore, neither of us will know of each other snoring, because we'll be sharing different rooms, but of course we'll both probably be out to it. But this is one thing I know Joel absolutely loves, is getting out and filming on farms. So I need to let you know, for the next couple of shows, they will be fully pre-recorded. So this show is the one live show of the week. I'd love to see who is following along with us live. And I know it is hard sometimes. You're making the most of daylight saving, being out and about. But let's talk about that one thing that keeps you loving the sector of farming and growing that you love so much. I'm going to ask Will, our guest tonight, actually, about, because I mean, it is something, if you're so super passionate and you get out of bed every day, of course you've got a great answer too, so why not? But I want to hear from you live in the comments wherever you are following along. Let's share what we're grateful for and what we absolutely love about it. There's so many things, so there's not a shortage. I want to hear from you throughout the show. And today on the show, I'm not sure if you have noticed, but I've resorted to this word fashion, then fibre, and what we are producing with food and fashion here in New Zealand. And the reason I say that is because it goes beyond growing and harvesting a wool off a sheep's back. It's so much more than that. And I'm super excited to have on Sarah's Country after 7:20 to discuss how seeing our natural fibres in a new light can be a game changer for New Zealand. Craig Carr is a managing director of Carr Fields, and he is now the newly appointed chair of a newly formed company called New Zealand Natural Fibres, and will explain to us how they aim to be a pioneer in the global natural fibres revolution, which leads to the fashion that we produce here from this country. And a great way to start is blending wool and hemp. Now, to close the show, the Productivity Commission wants the primary sector to focus more on value add. Yes, we've heard this so many times, but they think that the DIRA, the Dairy Industry Restructuring Act, was the wrong way about going about it. There is other ways that Fonterra, our major dairy giant, is making incremental gains, says dairy industry commentator Earl Rattray, principal of Dairy Link Consultancy, who's going to join us after 7:30 to say that this heavy change of regulation, reversing that, won't achieve the outcome of value add. An interesting perspective. And Earl has decades of experience, particularly in the Asia Pacific region, when it comes to our dairy exports. Now, we had an interview lined up to close the show with the new New Zealand chair of APEC's Business Advisory Council. I was excited to talk to her about her role as chair and helping shape our economic direction. But sadly, Rachel Taulali is also chief executive of Konu, and as you could probably imagine, extremely busy woman, and has been pulled away into a meeting. So sadly, we do not have Rachel, and I look forward to talking to her into the new year, because this is a very exciting role for her to be in. Firstly, here on Sarah's Country, they want to generate sustainable profits, premium value, vibrant communities, and for us to all be trusted guardians of the land. But how will New Zealand's meat sector achieve its 4 audacious goals over the next 5 years? Regular to Sarah's Country, Sirma Karapeeva, CEO of Meat Industry Association, will join us very shortly here to explain. This is Sarah's Country.
We're a large deer farm, and very proud deer farmer at that. I grew up here as a little boy. It is just an amazing lifestyle. I could never live in a city ever again. Just the big open spaces and just the peacefulness of it all. I think deer are very majestic, very intelligent animal. Having deer that are under pressure or anything like that, or overstocked, they really don't perform as well. You should really be spreading them out on beautiful pastures, keeping them happy. A happy deer is a good deer. And good feed, good grass. We renew our pastures all the time in the paddocks, so we're always getting the best quality grass. Well, I guess in the wild, they don't have the luxury of the grass that we put in front of them here as a farmed animal. I believe we've got some of the best English type deer in the country, if not the world. And to associate our brand with Silver Fern Farms brand works for us. Without the likes of Silver Fern Farms, then there's no point doing this. So they're very, very important for us. I'm Mark Tapley, very proud suppliers of venison to Silver Fern Farms.
Welcome to Sirma's Country, and particularly if you've joined us live, I'd love you to participate in the comments with me along with this live broadcast before, of course, we put it on to demand on podcast, thanks to our wonderful team in the UK. Now, the topic I want to talk about, it's a really simple one, and I will put this to our guests, is what is it that you absolutely love about being a cog in the wheel on this mission we're in, which is farming the most efficient and sustainable food and fibre in this country. There's wonderful things right through to the lifestyle of doing it, but the reward that you get back from it. I certainly enjoy getting out of bed every day to be a little cog in that wheel, and I just want to hear from you about, let's be passionate about it, because as I was saying, this year has been a little bit like a good marriage, through sickness and health. Yeah, goodness, we've been through it all, and we do have a big year ahead of us in 2021. It's not like it's all going to be fixed with a magic wand, and we're all in this together, just like a good marriage. Now, in our first story of this evening, sustainable profits, they say, will come from greater innovation, performance and productivity. Premium value from capturing and creating value with vibrant communities and economic growth and employment. That being a trusted guardian of the land is also about our being guardians of our reputation, our water, and of course our animals. The New Zealand red meat sector has outlined 4 goals in being able to achieve the next part of their strategy over the next 5 years, which will target sustainable growth to enhance people, animals and environment. At the heart of this strategy, set out by Beef and Lamb New Zealand and the Meat Industry Association, it's a pleasure to welcome, as I said, our regular to Sirma's Country, Sirma Karapeeva, CEO of Meat Industry Association, this evening to Sirma's Country. Now, let's outline, Sirma. The Meat Industry Association has been chaired by John Lohan and Tim Ritchie for some time now, and the strategy was formed, but the world has continuously changed. Is it about refreshing that strategy for a new normal?
Yeah, well, good evening, Sarah, and good evening to all your listeners. I thought your analogy of a good marriage for better or worse, et cetera, is really apt, because, of course, this red meat sector strategy 2020 essentially built after 2020, the 2011 strategy, which was the first strategy across the farm gate, both sides of the farm gate, acknowledging that collaboration and cooperation is the key to success, and we needed to have a plan to deliver on that. And so the way to pick that example, that analogy, the way I see the 2020 strategy, it's a renewal of the vows. We've done a lot of great things since the first strategy together. We've achieved some good stuff for the sector. Now things have changed. It's obviously been quite a difficult year with COVID and the challenges that are coming through to us, not only with COVID, but also around the environment, around perception and reputation risks, around the expectation of consumers, not only in New Zealand, but globally, about sustainability and sustainable food production. So, the landscape has changed, and we felt that we really did need to refocus our efforts and make sure that what we're doing, what we're investing our resources, our capital, our energy and people in, is actually the areas that are going to deliver for the sector across all those four goals that you outlined: sustainability and profitability, first and foremost, of course, value for a product, because, we do need to step up and we do need to show that there is value in the way we produce sheep and beef meat in New Zealand that is different to that to the way it's produced overseas. We do support all, vibrant rural communities, and we need to continue to do that as the largest employer in New Zealand, and is also key to making sure that those communities can continue to thrive. And of course, the trusted guardians around the guardianship of reputation, environment, water, animals, land. I mean, that's hugely important for our sector and also for New Zealand's brand as a whole.
Every good plan is only as good as it is measurable. And looking through this, there are some very tangible, measurable parts about it, especially when you start to talk about, every farm being electronically having animal status declaration forms, every sheep and beef farm having an active farm plan, farms and processors having biosecurity plans. Is that something that was very important when you came together with the stakeholders of the Meat Industry Association to say, how are we going to measure and talk about our success in another 5 years?
Yeah, well, absolutely. You spot on. Every plan is as good as its delivery, implementation, and of course you have to measure it. So we were very conscious of setting forward some very concrete and specific targets that we needed to achieve, because otherwise, what is the point of developing a nice document like this one if we can't look back and say, well, we set out to do this, we did X, Y, and Z, and we achieved it, or we didn't achieve it because, extenuating circumstances or whatever. But we have to have something to aim for. And I think the way that we've developed this the strategy with the goals and the very specific detail that sits underneath that will be key to delivery and will be key to success. So I'm really excited about the next bit of the adventure, which is actually getting on and doing the work. The teams both in the Meat Industry Association and Beef and Lamb New Zealand are behind the strategy. They can see their work reflected in the strategy. They can see how the strategy has been developed to capture opportunities that are coming up through the changing environments that we live in, and how as a sector we can actually step into those opportunities and capture the value for not only our farmers, processors, but for New Zealand as a whole.
There's a couple of opportunities I want to point out, and let's start here at home and something that we can control, which is policy development. And should it be done right, we can actually create a framework which is beneficial collectively. How much in 2021 can we see Beef and Lamb and Meat Industry Association step up into advocacy on behalf of its levy payers to actually have fair policy around some of these objectives?
Well, I think 2021, we will probably see a lot of the government manifestos and policies start being developed and implemented. And really, we do need to be very active and engaged in all this work to represent the sector. We know that there will be ongoing work on climate change. We know that there will be ongoing work on freshwater reform and freshwater quality standards, on farm planning. We know, things that affect the processes, industrial relations, workforce development, all those kinds of policies will really start to bite in 2021 and onwards. And so we are aware of that, and we are working on our plans, and we will be stepping up to advocate on behalf of the sector as a whole.
And the other thing that we aren't so much in control of is our consumers' perception on a range of things, from nutrition right down to their eating behaviours as well. What can we see from the Meat Industry Association to step up and tell our story better?
Well, in terms of nutrition, for example, we have recently kicked off a clinical trial, which I understand is probably the first of its kind that's being run. And it looks at the impact of red meat, pasture-raised red meat on the body in terms of digestion, nutrition, the way it interacts with inflammation markers, and the way it supports your general well-being. So we're looking at pasture-raised red meat. We're comparing it to grain-fed red meat, as well as to commercially available plant-based protein that you can, currently buy in the supermarket. So it's a very comprehensive study. There are probably about 80 or 100 participants that will take part in this over 10 or 12-week period. And we're hoping that at the end of the study, we will have some really credible data to talk about the nutritional value of red meat, not just what you and I immediately think about in terms of iron and protein and minerals and zinc, but much, much deeper in terms of how it interacts with your digestion and your body system as well. So, we're investing in this. This is going to be great stuff. We're really excited about it because it will be, as I said, one of the first, if not the first study that has been done in this area. And I guess it shows the commitment that we're putting into finding the real evidence base behind the claims that we need to make. So it's no good just saying it's great for you, but we can say it's great for you because, and here's the science that has been peer reviewed and proved, and it backs up that claim. So that's on nutrition and other sort of consumer perceptions. We're working across the two organisations, including with the consumer facing organisation Beef and Lamb Incorporated, on a project to bring some sense into the debate that consumers are engaging with. And I think it's fair to say that at the moment, consumers, particularly in New Zealand, they're bombarded with a whole lot of information that is based on overseas experiences, is based on overseas production systems. And, it might be true in that context, but it certainly does not account for the way we do things in New Zealand, the way we farm, the way we raise our animals and we take care of it. So, we need to bring some balance into that debate. And again, the only way we can do it is to generate the data, generate the evidence to support our claims, and engage with consumers on a level that resonates with them and helps them to make informed decisions.
Thank you so much, Sirma. Now, just before you go, I do want to ask you the one viewer comment, but we sadly don't have Rachel Taulele, the new chair of APEC, on the show. I was really looking forward to chatting to her. But in all of your roles in international and global trade, how special is it to have somebody like Rachel chairing the APEC Business Council that is also a New Zealander as well? Will this have a really good flow-on effect for us trade-wise?
Well, look, I think APEC as an organisation or as an entity can be very powerful. And certainly the Business Advisory Council, part of APEC, which Rachel is the chair of, they have a very direct link to the leaders of the 21 Asia-Pacific economies because they can speak on behalf of their representatives directly to those leaders. I think it's remarkable and very exciting for New Zealand to be in the chair of the APEC Business Advisory Council, particularly in the year when New Zealand is chairing APEC as a whole. I feel sorry for Rachel because most of this will be done virtually, as I understand it. And one of the benefits of APEC is that you do get to meet people face to face and make new friends and make new connections. But I guess it's just in a different space. You'll just have to do it virtually. But I think positioning strong leadership, positioning innovative business leadership in the centre of APEC, like Rachel will do, will be very valuable for New Zealand's brand as a whole. And, we should be able to promote some of the new ways of doing things that are so valuable for New Zealand and the new context of post-global life.
I knew that you would be able to speak to the fact that she's not here so eloquently like you did, Sirma. And lastly, why are you in this marriage called the primary industry? What makes it actually be, sit there for you in your heart, like as we were talking about?
In my heart.
Yeah, why are you in it?
Yeah. Why am I doing it? Well, look, I've got a very strong trade background, which is, one thing. But in New Zealand, you can't talk about trade without being too far away from the primary industries. I mean, the primary industries are so fundamental, it's so core to who we are here in New Zealand. And when you marry those two things with trade, because we are so trade exposed and trade focused, I mean, it is a beautiful marriage at the end of the day. So that's, that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much, Sirma Karapeeva, CEO there for Meat Industry New Zealand, and of course, extension on the story of Neil Wallace's great article in this week's Farmers Weekly. Now, coming up on Sarah's Country, we're going to hear from Craig Carr. Of course, he's Managing Director of Carfields by day, I shouldn't dare say this, and Chairman of a newly formed company. I'm sure he'll fit this, and he fits a lot into one day, this man, of a new company, New Zealand Natural Fibres, and this is extremely exciting. The new Natural Fibres company is set to merge wool and hemp and be at the forefront of a global sea change in consumer preference. Craig will join us very shortly here on Sarah's Country. This is Sarah's Country.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe. And waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. And Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
Really pleased we got into this. Thanks for your help, Dave.
It's a good idea, honey. You reckon it'll come out? Cover it in talcum powder, leave it 10 minutes, and you'll be fine. Good call, Dave.
Good call on getting those security cameras, Dave.
You caught a new one yet?
Yeah, kind of.
When you've got decisions to make, we'll be there to help you make the right call.
I'd go for those ones, Bob. Yeah, good call.
Did you choose these?
Oh, you know.
For great advice and insurance, talk to FMG.
Fantastic to see you with us live in the comments below. Ross Martin, hello. He's joined us from coastal Taranaki. Thank you so much, Ross. And Michael says, my joy comes when a farmer or producer helps achieve a new positive goal. Oh, absolutely fantastic. Of course, we're talking tonight in the comments about why you love being a part of it. I mean, you know what? You don't have to be in this industry, but at the same time, we all are drawn to it for a reason, and you don't have to grow up in this industry to love it. So I'd love to hear why you love it. I could tell you why I love it for an hour, but I won't, because of course I'm very excited to talk to our next guest and a move to innovate for a greener tomorrow. The company is known as NZ Yarn, a subsidiary of Carfield's Primary Wool, and hemp processing company Hemp NZ have joined forces to create what is now known as New Zealand Natural Fibres, a natural fibres and material business with global ambitions. We are joined now by Craig Carr, Chairman of New Zealand Natural Fibres. Good evening, Craig. Now, you're quoted saying the new company is aiming to be a pioneer in the global natural fibres revolution. Could you please explain what you mean by revolution specifically?
Okay, well, yeah, good evening, Sarah. Great to be on the show. Pioneer, yeah, that's a great word, but really for us, we're doing something quite new here. So pioneering is new. We're growing hemp, we're combining it with wool, and we're making, really cool products that, that can actually bring, natural fibers to the forefront of the world, really. So, while we're not quite up and running yet, we've got the factory being installed right now, and we thought it fitting that we actually rebrand it with a new name that actually, takes us forward into the future. Really talking about these two fantastic natural fibers that we can really take on and start to look at those replacements for plastics and other products that are used. So, yeah, we're really excited by what we're doing, and as I said, it's a first in lots of ways. Hemp has been processed before and all of that, but what we're doing here in New Zealand, from growing the crop, harvesting it, baling it, delivering it to the factory, and more importantly, combining it with wool, that's a unique point of difference that we have over other people in the world. Other people can grow hemp fiber, but they can't grow wool. So we just see it a huge, unique selling proposition that we actually have something very unique, and the prototype products that we've put out there and we've tested with consumers, are really exciting. So, yeah, I think that is pioneering. If I can answer that in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for those who may not be familiar, but with the different strengths of both of the fibres, combining them, what do they bring as attributes to tell not only the value chain story of how it came to be, but also how uniquely durable and the attributes they will bring as a combined fibre?
I was just going to grab the sample, but yeah. So look, both of them have unique characteristics, but obviously, hemp has been around for many years, but has been sort of locked away, and it's been in the last few years that has actually came out to really, talk about the attributes of hemp being, a very strong fibre, and it can be processed and then further processed and made into some amazing products. So, both wool and hemp, as we know, have great properties, but together they sort of, they benefit each other as well. And so some of the stuff that we're really looking to do takes a combination of both products where we can create that uniqueness. And that's, that's all been driven by, where we started all those many, 5 or 6 years ago, when, the Delatours Primary Wool Co-op, and at that time Elders Primary Wool, set about, saving the New Zealand Yarns factory, which, had gone into receivership. So it's been a hard 5-year slog in terms of rebuilding, the yarn business to now a profitable business. We've invested a lot into reshaping it. And really, we've really taken product to a whole different level. And in terms of hemp, we have now added that because, we're getting inquiry for more sustainable materials, and hemp can take us into other places not just weed matting and all those types of products, but high value clothing lines. And all of these global brands are looking for, replacements to polymer or plastics, which both these natural fibres actually offer. So, it is really exciting to see the combination of what we can create. And as I said, yet we're still in the early stages, but what we're bringing together through our R&D projects is quite exciting.
Yeah, and I like the way that you've called it earth positive choices for the brands that you will supply. Craig, do I dare ask, in your years in the wool industry, what you've learnt so far?
Well, what have I learnt so far? I mean, I've learned it's a very passionate industry, right from the growers to our people who work in the business, to the end users who actually use wool. I mean, everyone is extremely passionate about it, which is something, you don't see a lot around. And people have been involved in this industry for many, many years. And so passion for me really comes through, and when I talk to farmers, they're just down on where the prices are right now. I mean, it's a very topical topic, and I think it's because the fact is we all know it's a wonderful product. But I've been only involved in the wool industry for 5 or 6 years now, but I mean, we have learnt a lot. We've done a lot in the industry, and we're not giving up. I mean, the initiatives such as this, we need more and more of these initiatives, because that's what's going to drive the demand for wool, and that's what's going to drive the demand for natural fibre products. So, it is, I believe we've got an exciting road ahead. I think we're on the cusp of something actually in both wool and natural fibres, plant fibres, because we are just hearing and seeing it. It's not coming through right now, but everyone and our competitors and the entire industry are all working in the right direction, which I think is really, really positive. It's great to see.
Is the government on the team with this? Because we've seen reports of a $2 billion industry around hemp, yet the Misuse of Drugs Act is certainly being a handbrake to this. Are you having conversations with, of course, Minister O'Connor, who on one hand wants an action group on strong wool, yet we could do so much more structurally to benefit hemp and bring this complete dream together?
Look, where we are right now with hemp, there's no issues in producing hemp for fibre. So, ultimately down the track, if there's further legislation to allow production of CBDs and a whole lot of stuff that I'm not an expert to talk about, then that will continue to make the crop even more profitable for farmers that are growing it, which is a key driver behind what we do every day, right? But where we are right now, there's nothing stopping us growing more hectares of hemp fibre. Ultimately, we still have to be competitive on the global stage. But, we're looking to take our product, with what we're doing with the processing side of things and, taking it into that very, very high quality, if you can see me right here, almost like cotton wool type product, which is going to take quite a lot of innovation, quite a lot of technology, but we want to do it in a chemical-free, in a automated way, so we can be leading edge on the world stage of actually giving those global brands fibres that they have a trusted in supply chain back to the farm, and they can trust it. So from our point of view, that's where we're taking it. But yeah, ultimately, if the further hemp and marijuana thing all plays out over the future, the more we can get per hectare, the better for all involved. And that's, but right here today, we can produce as much hemp for fibre and as much hemp for food products, which is great. And it's a growing crop, and it has a lot of benefits to everyone who's involved in it.
Craig, I do want to talk to you around another elephant in the room, which is our secondary industry, our manufacturing industry here in this country. And I mean, you've invested in leading edge natural fibre processing facility imported from Europe. And as you said, the wonderful Delator family and of course those behind Primary Wool Co-op saving New Zealand yarn to not go in. This is an area that we've let completely go to waste. I mean, to be able to manufacture anything of added value in this country seems like it's a bygone era. What can we do as a country to actually fund our productive sector?
Yeah, look, it's a really good point, and something I know I've been in the last few weeks particularly talking about as I get around the country, because it is one thing we do too much of is putting product into containers or onto ships that we don't add any more value. In terms of New Zealand Yarn, we actually employ upwards of 50 people in that business. So, the new future natural fibres, New Zealand natural fibres, and we pay rent bills and we pay transport bills. So we actually retain a significant amount. I think it's somewhat $15 million plus is retained within the Canterbury economy, Christchurch economy, and the farming community, and obviously across the wool sector, that we actually add to that wool as a commodity. So, that actually, employs people, the factory, it creates jobs. And for me, I think that's what we need to do more of. I'd like to see a government investing behind productive assets such as manufacturing. We've shut all these places down because we can't compete against the world. Actually, what we need to do is continue to innovate so we can compete against the world. We see a lot of these other economies around the world producing automotive and a whole lot of high-tech stuff, and their economies aren't cheap to operate in. So we can do it. And I believe that's what we need to do more of with our agricultural products. It's building a brand and building that type of supply chain is not easy, but we have to start somewhere. And so I'm really proud that we have the only independent wool yarn spinning facility in Australasia. We are extremely important to the Australian carpet industry. We can make small batches, high quality yarn. And what's been really evident through the COVID pandemic is that actually we've picked up new customers because we've been able to keep going. We were only shut for 3 or 4 weeks during that level 4 lockdown. We came straight out of the lockdown and we were getting orders from our customers because they weren't being able to get product out of Europe, out of Eastern Europe, out of Asia. So we have a real right place here in New Zealand to be able to, add more value to our commodity products. And that's what will drive commodity prices long term, is creating more consumer-led products.
Craig, before you go, we're talking about the marriage made in heaven, which is when you fall in love with the primary sector and you want to be a part of it. And I do have to ask you, I mean, your entire family is passionately involved in what is known as car fields in this journey. I mean, through all of your conversations as a family about why you do what you do, what is the thing that keeps you jumping out of bed every morning?
Well, I think first and foremost, we're also farmers, so we understand the challenges that farmers face on a daily basis. We understand it's not easy. So, first and foremost, that's our roots. I think what drives us also is that we see the quality of the products we actually produce in New Zealand. And when you travel across the world, and I've traveled an awful lot across all parts of the world in the last 10 to 12 years, nothing makes you more prouder than to see New Zealand products on menus or on supermarket shelves. And so I think what drives us is we actually live in a fantastic country. We have a lot of freedom. We have amazing products. We're seen globally as a great place to live and to buy products from, and we've just got to keep on that journey. So I think for us, it's passion which drives us. It's farming, and it's around just making New Zealand really, really amazing. So That's what keeps us digging.
Fantastic. Absolute pleasure. And of course, because we only have 3 interviews tonight, I'm using the opportunity to extend these interviews with these fantastic, passionate guests. And of course, that is chair of a brand new formed company known as New Zealand Natural Fibres. And of course, as I jokingly said, but by day he is also the managing director of Carfields Group. So it's very exciting, and you can capture the full story on farmersweekly.co.nz about natural fibres being a game changer, thanks to Annette Scott. Coming up after the break, I know this next guest is extremely passionate as well. And we are talking about a dig from our the Productivity Commission, wanting to saying that the primary sector focusing on more value-added exports is not having the DIRA restructure be back on the table. We hear from Earl Rattray, the principal of Dairy Link Consultancy, around how commodity products is putting more pressure on the environment, and value add is our only way forward, and that Fonterra needs a good look at. Earl Rattray will join us very shortly here on Sarah's Country. This is Sarah's Country.
One of the first things you learn when you live out here
is where to shop and the things you need to live out here.
like electric fencing,
Or horse feed.
or bee suits.
Children.
Chook food.
Do you want a couple of these?
Or something stylish to wear. Not everyone's got stuff like this. But at Farmlands we do, and then some.
So if you need anything to help your farm,
Grow, milk, drench.
Rhea, come on in.
Because we're out here too.
Every morning, Kiwi farmers wake up to produce high quality food. Yet, every night, some Kiwi families are going to sleep hungry. Meet the Need is a charity founded by farmers, and it's here to change all that. We're about New Zealand farmers feeding New Zealand families by donating a small part of what we grow when we can. You can help us make sure no one in New Zealand goes to sleep hungry again. Visit meettheneed.org and follow us on social.
Welcome to Sarah's Country, and thank you so much to our live audience for joining us. I have a couple of comments here below, but we're talking tonight about the marriage that is being in the primary sector. It has its ups and its downs, but the thing is, there's something that draws us to it. And the one thing I do really treasure so deeply from all of my years of growing up since I was born, working and being a part of a farming family, as well as, of course, now in a role that wraps around the industry and a communications type role, is the uniqueness of the people that are in this industry, the humbleness to fault at some point, but when you hear of the cups of tea and baking that is shared with the authorities coming onto people's farms, will blow you away. It's the absolute love and passion that keeps them till dark through weather, through storms, that will still continually turn up to the local community hall for a fundraiser. I cannot be more proud of working in this industry, and I want to hear from you about why you love what we do here in this country known as Aotearoa New Zealand. And Sarah's Country is so proud to be in a part and amongst of that complete unique culture which makes New Zealand farming growing so unique. So super wonderful. Leanne joining us says, this is in regards to Sirma's interview earlier from the Meat Industry Association about the rural connectivity to allow collection and generation of the data needed. It's a very, very valid point, Leanne, and I do have a couple of great interviews planned for you over the next couple of days, which I can tell you have been pre-recorded because myself and Joel are hitting the road to enjoy some cups of tea with some wonderful farmers over the next couple of days, and a bit of a filming project that we have going on. So I totally understand that there is one thing to capture data, but the thing is we need the rural connectivity to do so. Another comment says, following Craig Carr's discussion there, that the way to add value is a progressive tax on exports. Logs, high tax, special fibres and products, very low tax. I'd like to also suggest we really seriously look at import tariffs on certain things. But the thing is, we are a very small country and it's a very bold move to move on some of those things, and a bold move from the Productivity Commission. I saw this report come through and they're recommending a reversal of changes to the regulation of our dairy giant known as Fonterra. The Dairy Industry Restructuring Act was passed only into law in July, and our Productivity Commission is saying there needs to be new rules. This was very interesting to me, of course. I flipped it under our editorial producer Tessa's nose and said, I need to talk to somebody about this. And they found us our wonderful next guest, Dairy Link consultant, Earl Rattray, who's been working in the dairy industry for quite some time. Earl, thank you so much for coming on to Sarah's Country. I really do appreciate it, because this is some pretty gutsy things to say, that to fix New Zealand's mediocrity around our productivity, softer regulations will only increase Fonterra's milk powder strategy and stifle development of the industry. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, Earl. Is this fair?
No, it's not. Like most of these things, Sarah, look, there's a pinch of truth in it and a mountain of something else. But look, it's great to be on your show, and I'm very happy to talk about this subject. So the productivity report it's a big read, 200 pages, and it puts its own particular spin on things. And yes, that theme in it that New Zealand has had a volume growth strategy, which has resulted in much more land and dairying and more cows, etc. But it hasn't been delivering value add that in their definition was expected. And look, I'd have to say I've got a different take on that altogether. They begin the report by basically lamenting the fact that there's many New Zealand companies and sectors have actually failed to or struggle to generate significant value growth, catch up with the prosperities of other what they call small advanced countries. But I can confidently say the dairy sector is not one of those sectors that's been failing to catch up. In fact, I think it's well and truly caught up and has been more than pulling its weight. To give you an example of this, 20 years ago, when Fonterra was formed, it was absolutely inconceivable to the average New Zealand dairy farmer that we would be getting about the same milk price, value for our milk, as European or US farmers. And in recent years, we've been routinely achieving that. It's up and down a little bit, but that's about where New Zealand's sitting. So, look, as far as a farmer's concerned, we've actually caught up to our Northern Hemisphere colleagues over the last 20 years, and that's not a trivial achievement. At the same time as that, there's now over 50,000 people employed in the dairy sector in New Zealand, tipping over $3.5 billion of wages in it. But more importantly, and this is probably important, key to the Productivity Commission report, a lot of those employees are highly paid, This is not a low wage sector where you're saving costs on labour. No, the labour is very specialised, and by New Zealand standards. And by international standards, it's pretty well paid. So I'm at a little bit of a loss to understand why the dairy industry's taken a bit of a kicking in this report. But when you read through it, you can see that they've got a view that anybody who's producing commodities can't be adding value, and that's not the script anymore.
But I'm of the understanding that Fonterra welcomed the Dairy Industry Restructuring Act and the fact that they wouldn't need to pick up and they could refuse entry onto dairy farmers and actually have some farm assurance standards around their milk. So therefore, is this not a positive into an area of value add?
Well, yes, it is. Look, I'm at a bit of it's a mystery to me why they focused on this this provision of the most recent reform, which did allow Fonterra to decide for itself whether milk it collected added value or not. And if you think about a company like Fonterra or any company in that, its policy settings, its governance will be about doing what's in the interest of the company. And if it's in the interests of Fonterra to collect milk that wanted to return to it after leaving on, why wouldn't they? The fact is that it's without the compulsion to do that, it does put choice in their hands. But I can't see, and there's never been any evidence that's going to be a barrier to farmers choosing to leave. If a farmer wants to leave Fonterra, they'll leave.
Yeah.
The last thing on their mind will be whether they can come back or not. So there's no evidence that I've seen that is a material issue or barrier to competition, barrier to new players coming in and collecting milk. And look, forming policy, on the basis of hearsay or speculation about that's probably not a good thing. If there was some strong evidence that was the case, then I think I'd sit up and listen. But yes, Fonterra's had in the past, it has been criticised for growing. It's been obliged to collect milk in New Zealand, and it's had to spend an awful lot of capital to process that extra milk. So it hasn't up until now had the choice about whether it expands or not. So I would have thought it was a positive move to give them that choice.
And I suppose the recommendations of a reversal is about new rules believed to stifle much needed competition in the likes of A2 milk and Synlait with high value based on nutritious claims as well as of course environmental regulations as well. But in the flip side, I mean, there's been a lot of pressure on Fonterra to achieve 15% revenue growth per year to move into high value exports. There's no way our red meat sector would even be able to achieve that.
Well, look, nothing's impossible, of course, but Fonterra itself, I guess, since its formation, one of the things that gets overlooked, all of a sudden after Fonterra was formed, everyone wanted to be a dairy farmer. The South Island milk supply grew from 2 billion litres to 10 billion recently. And look, a lot of capital has had to be deployed in putting in place the processing capacity to deal with that growth in milk. And it is, Fonterra has been helped along the way more recently by the other new entrants that have come in. Open Country and Synlait have taken some of the strain off Fonterra and being able to process that milk. So, but it hasn't stopped them coming in and starting up. But I think, it's fair to say that when you're deploying as much capital to basic processing, basic commodity processing, which is needed to handle that volume of milk, it does cut your opportunities for investing elsewhere. So that's we've probably got past the point of volume growth in New Zealand, and I think the historical picture is about to change going forward, where New Zealand is now facing low to no growth and possibly a contraction of supply, which means that companies' strategies and their priorities will change. So, hey, I don't think looking back is the right way to assess what the future is going to look like.
But Earl, the reason I want to discuss this is because this doesn't make sense. They talk about the dairy expansion reaching its environmental limits in terms of pressure on water quality, etc. But it's my understanding that DIRA came into play to put a brake on the expansion of dairy and in the form of Fonterra not having to be a monopoly that picks up and rewards bad behaviour.
Certainly, DIRA was designed to foster competition. And that's exactly what it has done. There are at least 8 independent processors in New Zealand following their own strategy. So DIRA has worked exactly as it was designed to do, as far as I can see. So, but more recently, this most recent change, I think, is a tweak recognising that Fonterra's obligation to take back or to accept more milk is probably, the purpose of that has probably run its course. So I thought it was a good move to make that most recent amendment to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the bit I don't understand. And any of our listeners and viewers listening, please get in touch with me to clarify this, because why would our Productivity Commission want to reverse the particular thing that sets us in good stead for the future? Helen Clark, am I correct? Earl didn't realise what would happen when the DIRA was established originally in regards to the expansion of dairy in this country. And so therefore this restructuring was part of this point about creating a sustainable dairy industry in this country. Am I wrong?
Well, look, I think right from when certainly that I can remember in the dairy industry, environmental integrity has it's been a prerequisite of milk production in New Zealand, and it is still evolving. It's adding new dimensions to that every year. I mean, we're now monitoring our carbon footprints, nutrient analysis, but protecting streams has been a feature of the industry for a long time, and we have grown to the point. But now that we're probably are at peak cow numbers, at least for the foreseeable future. The rest of the world's asking where the heck's the milk going to come from. Well, it's unlikely to be coming from New Zealand except for incremental gains, and that is going to provide companies here with an opportunity to change their strategies around how they operate in this sector.
We've got a comment coming here. Paul Harris has said, it's loving to hear about our pay parity with European milk producers. Great referencing, Earl. Brand competition for Fonterra is often coming from product innovation and enhanced pushing of our core food values. There's so much more at play, isn't there?
There is. Look, I think there's clearly a theme running through the Productivity Commission's report that they see value add as producing distinctive and specialised products, and they don't recognise that in fact much of our core manufacturing in New Zealand there is an element of distinctiveness to it. Many of them are very, very specialised products, which is why we can consistently command premiums, for example, for skim milk powder, which is your most basic commodity there is, but we consistently achieve premiums for that out of New Zealand for a whole lot of reasons. Specification reasons is one. You can do more with it. But it's the fact is that the New Zealand dairy industry has built an incredibly strong base around basic manufacturing, which has allowed multiple other things to happen. And every new entrant that's come into New Zealand or has started up a process, they've all put up powder dryers. And whole milk powder's got there's a sense that it's something that we shouldn't be doing to the extent that we are, but it's enabled fantastic value creation in the New Zealand dairy industry. It's basically allowed us to utilise nature's greatest gift to New Zealand, and that's seasonal pasture production. And if matching dairy cows' biological cycle with seasonal pasture production, it does create a huge amount of milk in a very, very short period of time. And 4 months of the year, we produce 10 billion litres of milk. Now, there is no way that milk can be valorised in anything other in the short term than a basic powder product that takes the water out of it and basically stores it, or variations of that, butter and skim milk powder or cheese, for example. But being able to process that amount of milk in a very, very short period of time is the fundamental value pillar of the New Zealand dairy industry. And if we depart from that, start to fight nature on the farm, for example, by producing milk out of season, ultimately we will be the losers for that. We will lose industry competitiveness. Underneath all that, though, it's clear that while New Zealand's milk production, 10 months to October this year, is up about 1%, actually commodity manufacturing is down slightly. Whole milk powder about 1.5%, skim and butter much more. And that just shows that gradually more of New Zealand's milk is being committed to what I think the Productivity Commission would probably identify as value-add products. And look, it's not well known, but anyone can pick up, for example, the Fonterra annual report, and they can see there's $6 billion of food service and consumer business in that company. You mentioned A2, which is a remarkable story of utilising powders essentially, but a specialist powder, and they've created a market niche for that. And have been doing very, very well up until recently. As you said, Synlait have been doing tremendously well in branding what's otherwise basic powder and adding features to it that give it a point of difference. I haven't seen anything that's constraining competition and innovation in the New Zealand dairy industry for a very, very long time since the statutory single seller was removed. I think the dairy industry is delivering exactly what it was reformed in the early 2000s and set up to do.
It was just like a little bone with a dog. I knew it was inside you, Earl. And we're talking tonight about being passionate about the industry. Oh, Earl, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on Cirrus Country. And of course, we're talking about the Productivity Commission wanting to reverse the changes on the regulatory dairy giant, regulations around the dairy giant Fonterra. Oh, Earl, what a great way to end a show on that theme. And of course, if you've missed any of the interviews on Cirrus Country, you can get them, you can listen to them individually. That's the cool thing I'm being told is feedback from you as listeners and guests on podcasts, and you can take them wherever you are if you're driving. And I love the feedback that, of course, a lot of people spending a lot of time in tractors at the moment. And what a great way to put on the odd interview or two and hear the real honest thoughts and opinions of those who work in the primary sector, food and fashion here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Thank you so much. And of course, we've got two great shows lined up for you tomorrow and the next day as myself and Joel hit the road. And we are going to be filming for Trailblazers Irrigation Awards talking and interviewing and seeing for ourselves the most sustainable irrigators in New Zealand and what the environmental outcomes they're able to achieve when they pair the two together. Thank you so much for watching along live, and of course we'll be back live tomorrow from 7 o'clock. In the meantime, thanks to our strategic alliance with Farmers Weekly, make sure you check out your latest paper hitting your mailboxes today, as well as of course online, farmersweekly.co.nz. And in the meantime, good night and go well. This is Sarah's Country.